Vidyangkaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to this webinar on Kaupeena-Panchakam. As you know well, Panchakam means a bunch of 5 stanzas. Pancha means 5. This is attributed once more to Sri Adi Shankaracharya, but maybe it was written by a Shankaracharya in the lineage, parampara of Shankaracharyas. May not be Adi Shankaracharya. Pancha means 5, Panchakam, a bunch of 5 verses on Kaupeena. Kaupeena literally means the loincloth. In the Indian tradition, many rishis, munis, saints, sages wore just a loincloth and moved around. In the last century, we had Sri Ramana Maharshi, very often wearing just a loincloth and sitting in all majesty over a rock or over a simple seat. Kaupeena, while it literally means a loincloth, just a piece of cloth which a man wears and he does not wear any other shirt, etc. Though it means that the composition should not be taken as literally emphasizing the loincloth. The loincloth becomes an idiomatic expression for utter physical simplicity. What is important really is psychological simplicity. In fact, enlightened sages are free of any grip of psychology. What is called psychological memory, psychological burden of the mind is completely absent in illumined people. But this hymn is not about illumined people, though they can also be included in a larger sense. But this is about those who have a high degree of clarity about the Vedanta's teachings, and that clarity gives them inspiration. More clear you are, more steady and lasting is your inspiration. When people are not very clear, here and there they get excited, but later on, when their mind again gets a little confused, thinking whether they are practical or they are becoming too idealistic or fanciful, whimsical, and so on, then they shake. Vairāgya, born of jnāna. Vairāgya, not born of some kind of willing, some kind of brutal resolving. That tomorrow onwards, I will be like this, I will be like that, come what may, etc. That doesn't have much value. For the simple reason that vairagya does not stay long. But vairagya born of jnana. And as I have already clarified, this jnana doesn't mean the ultimate realization, but an adequate amount of clarity on the value of desirelessness, the value of the simplest possible life, the value of not depending upon either this pleasure or that possession, or even praise, acceptance, approval, etc. Very delicate issue. If somebody doesn't care for anybody's opinion, this person may go quite arrogant. I don't care who says, I'm just going to do what I want to do, could be carrying the smell of arrogance. And on the other hand, those who have high degree of vairāgya also do not care for social opinion. So, Kaupeena-Panchakam, we have clarified. Don't take the word Kaupeena literally. It is a symbol of great external simplicity. And by force of context, not otherwise, the external simplicity, as far as this hymn goes, is accompanied by inner clarity. So it has worked both ways because they have tremendous clarity about Adhyatma Jnana. They got vairāgya and they disposed of very many comforts and possessions. Aparigraha, non-possession, is a great value in Yoga Shastra as well as in other Shastras. Kaupina, therefore, is aparigraha. Rather than accumulating, hoarding, keeping two, three, four of the same kind of luxury or comfort, these people reduce, further reduce, and more than anything else, they do not depend at all on any particular comfort. Any convenience that they have is incidental, they do not depend on it. With this, let us take a look at the verses of this Kaupeena-Panchakam, 5 verses in praise of renunciation, in praise of the most simple living. Vedantavakyeshu sada ramantah भिक्षान्नमात्रेण चतुष्टिमन्तः अशोकवन्तः करुणैकवन्तः कौपीनवन्तः खलु भाग्यवन्तः. Every verse ends with this refrain. Kaupeena-vantaha khalu bhagyavantaha. Those who move around wearing just a loincloth are indeed most blessed, most fortunate. In other words, anybody among us who has great vairāgya, who does not depend upon the external world for his or her own peace of mind, is indeed very fortunate. To be independent of factors outside us is such a great accomplishment, spiritually speaking. It is interesting that the very first verse highlights deep contemplation and enjoyment there of Upanishadic statements. Vedanta is a word which essentially means Upanishads. And then, secondarily, a large number of works which also go in line with Upanishads are called Vedanta. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sada Ramantaha. As per modern Paninian grammar, Ramamanaha, but for simplicity, Ramantaha, always reveling in Vedanta statements, contemplating on Ishavasyamidam Sarvam, or thinking about Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, or Tattvamasi, I am Atma Brahma, Mahavakyas, and a number of other kinds of Vakyas, which can take a sadhaka's mind to dizzy heights of spiritual contemplation. People who are able to revel in this are indeed fortunate. And there is a famous 2 point formula for daily spiritual practice. It is hold and let go. Hold the higher. First comes holding the higher, and then let go of the lower, like climbing a ladder. Typically, we hold both the vertical bamboos or rods made of any other material. We hold the two sides firmly with our hands and take one of our feet above, place it well on the higher rung, and having placed it there, we then take the other foot also upwards. That means we let go of our position on the lower rung, hold the upper rung, and being sure that you are stable there, let go of the lower rung. Lot of people complain, we don't have vairāgya, we don't have enough detachment. We say, do you do the first part of that very famous two-step spirituality? Hold. Do you take off 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there to think of God? Do you take a short break from what is otherwise endless thinking on matters of the world, pleasure, power, position, and so on? When one is very ignorant and one's vasanas are too strong, unknowingly one is going only after matters of the world. No time spared at all for sadhana. Therefore, the very first sentence here is significant. Holding the higher, doing sadhana. That is how they developed increased taste for dwelling in their own pure self. Sada ramantaha. Ramana means enjoying, reveling, delighting. And as they delight more and more in their own true self, the dependence on good food, good clothes, good place to stay, people praising, appreciating us, dependence on all these things is bound to reduce. Therefore, once more, rather symbolically, the second quarter of the first shloka says, Bhikshanna matrena tushti manta. Tushti, santushti is contentment. They are extremely content with what they got through bhiksha. They go around in the olden days, stand before the doors of houses and say, Bhavati bhiksham dehi. And people in the households come out with some food or some samagri, rice or wheat or some vegetables, which the sadhu can carry to his place of stay and get it cooked. But now that kind of going door to door is rather impossible. Bhikshanna means taking food offered by devotees, students, associates, and so on. But most importantly, Bhiksha is, from an inner point of view, something that is received with no abhimana. If anybody has some abhimana, pride, I am from such and such family, I am educated, though today they don't recognize me, I am in a sadhu's dress, I have done advanced studies in law or economics. I hope these people somehow come to know. It's not nice for me to tell them, but somebody should tell them how qualified I was before I became a monk and so on. This is called absence of vairāgya. Accepting food given by others as long as it is clean, hygienic, without making an issue of either the quantity or the specific attributes of the food. Accept things as they come. Let your mind not react. Go about filling or feeding your belly with food that is received in that fashion. And there is a lot of significance to that kind of living. Therefore, it is said your life will change when your outlooks change. If your outlook is somehow keep the body happy, keep the senses happy, Vedanta comes after the senses, eyes, ears, etc., are happy with other things. That kind of outlook will drive you in one direction, whereas if you have an outlook that more important than the body and its cravings is the aspiration of the soul. I want liberation. I want spiritual illumination. Once that outlook is of that kind, life becomes very simple. Bhikshanna matrena tushtimantaha ashokavantaha. Shoka means sorrow. Shokavantaha filled with sorrow. But as we hold God and let go of the world in a wise and mature manner, slowly we have no reason to cry. We have no reason to weep, no reason at all to sit depressed, dejected, etc. Ashokavantaha, having no grief, is thus a very important dimension of spiritual life. You are doing japa, but your face shows, oh, how much more japa should I do now? You are not liking what you are doing. That is a tragedy. Karunaikavanta. So those who are not mature, those who still have certain slavery to sense objects, they are so unhappy. How can they be compassionate to anybody? In order to be compassionate towards somebody, you must be first accepting yourself as you are. If in a corner of your mind, if not in the center, you are complaining, I must be richer, I must have more good name in the town, I must be received much better than how they are receiving me now. I must get this, I should get that. When that is with us, then how can we be compassionate? Even if somebody tells us, that man is suffering, preoccupied with our own ambition and aspiration, we would just say, oh, really? Sorry to hear that. Oh, okay, I will talk to him sometime. I'll talk to his family sometime. I'll pray for him. Okay, bye bye. So you make a uh, short work of the entire thing because your heart is in you are enjoying something, you are becoming somebody, and so on. Karuna, compassion is possible when you do not have the pressure of where you have to reach, what you have to become, and which things you have to enjoy. That creates a pressure. People don't realize it. People say, what is wrong if we enjoy some good food and wear some nice clothes and go in an expensive car? What is wrong? We have worked hard, earned that much money, and so on. You do not know. You have no idea how blissful it is to live a simple life. Now you are already so attached, you cannot see things from another lens. You will see it from the lens of material prosperity. Karuna ekavantaha, having true compassion, which is indirectly possible only through vairāgya. Vairāgya should arise from jnāna. Without studying, if you simply try to pose like a very simple person, neither people will accept you, nor will you yourself be able to hold it, sustain it. Then, in the second shloka, the poet says, मूलं तरो केवलमाश्रयन्तः पाणिद्वये भोक्तुम् अमत्रयन्तः कन्थामपि स्त्रीमिव कुत्सयन्तः कौपीनवन्तः खलु भाग्यवन्तः. Talking about residence, again, when we are worldly, when we are attached to comfort and pleasure of the world, our desire to have a very good place of stay goes on growing. From one bedroom, we want to go to two bedroom, then to three bedroom, then to four bedroom, then from flat to an independent house, from a regular independent house to an independent house in a posh locality, and the house filled with all kinds of comforts, etc. That's what we and our family members want. But when there is Bhagavad Bhakti, and out of that devotion to God, there arises this vairāgya, no taste or no urge for acquiring another piece of comfort. Then, as the shloka says, one is happy to sleep even under a tree. Moolam taroho. Taru means a tree. One may sleep just under a tree. See, in no way, don't take this so literally. In no way, spirituality insists that if you are advanced, you should be sleeping under a tree. No, no. Sleep wherever, sleep even in an excellent, well, decorated, uh, air-conditioned bedroom and so on. Not an issue, but psychologically, are there attachments to that kind of place of stay? And what is more, in addition to just the comfort and pleasure, does your mind say, at last, I am living a high standard life these days? None of my cousins or brothers or sisters were able to achieve this. I am the one who has reached very high. In this way, if you pat yourself on the back, if you make an issue of it in your mind, whether you tell others or not, then you are carrying a big burden. Therefore, it's not about literally letting go of comfort or pleasure, but it's certainly about letting go of the aspiration, the urge. You must go to a higher state of consciousness. You cannot have the cake and eat it too, as the idiom goes. Here too, you cannot have tremendous interest and inclination towards movies and ice cream and you know, nice clothes to wear, and etc. You cannot be there too and pure love of God, forgetting everything. How can that be possible? At least in your own inner experience, you must put God first, and God must be everything to you. Therefore, it is said, Moolam taroho kevalam ashrayantah Panidvaye bhoktum amatrayantaha. Amatra means a patra. They are sometimes so much absorbed in spiritual contemplation, they may not even remember that their earthen pot with which they used to take food from houses had fallen and broken yesterday. As they go and say, Bhiksham Dehi, Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi, and the lady of the house brings some food or material to prepare food, they realize their patra is missing. So they keep their hands only. Pani dvaya, pani dvaye bhoktum amatrayanta. Amatra means patra, vessel. And generally it is said when one rises to heights of vairāgya, if it is case of a man, the man looks at women with no interest. And he has as much interest in pretty women as he has about some torn piece of cloth. In this Kaupeena-Panchakam puts it the other way around. He doesn't care for a piece of cloth which somebody may be ready to offer to him. He doesn't care for the piece of cloth, just as he doesn't care for charming women. So, putting both of the expressions together, he is not interested either in wonderful clothes or in women. Therefore, stream iva kantam kutsayantaha or kantam iva striyam kutsayantaha. Both are acceptable. Kaupeenavantaha khalu bhagyavantaha. Thirdly, dehabhimanam parihritya durat atmanamatmani avalokayantah अहर्निशं ब्रह्मणि ये रमन्तः कौपीनवन्तः खलु भाग्यवन्तः. Now the poet is bringing matter very close to the crux of the matter. What is the crux of the matter? More than car or house, ice cream or jalebi, can you let go of your very idea that you are the body? I am the body idea. That has to be dropped. Deha abhimanam parityajya. You have a body, you take care of the body, fulfilling various basic needs, but that's about it. You're not worried about how you should look and how people should see you, how you are young or old. This anxiety about looks and impressive personality, etc., is deha abhimana. That is at the root of a whole lot of our problems. Deha abhimanam parihatya atmanam atmani avalokayantaha. Looking at the pure self in one's own self. You first hear about the pure self, Atma jnāna, and you think Atma is somewhere far away. As you evolve, you say that Atma is not far. It is in my own pure self. It is my own pure self. Atma is in the self. Pure Atma is the self. In and as we put the expression. That way, Aharnisham Brahmani Ramanta, enjoying the contemplation on Brahma, Brahmani Ramantaha, Kaupeenavantaha, Khalu Bhagyavantaha. Two more verses to go. Swananda bhave paritushtimantaha swashanta sarvendriya vrittimantaha nantam na madhyam na bahi smarantaha kaupinavantaha khalu bhagyavantaha. Paritushtimantaha, supremely happy. In what? Swa Ananda Bhave, the state of recognizing the Ananda, happiness, Swa, in themselves. Swa Ananda, Nija Ananda, as we put it. So here also I must draw your attention to an interesting process. Generally we think that we will have terrific self-control, then we will have Atmajnana. Many a time it could be other way around also. Because you have Atmajnana and you are well anchored in it, you will not pursue objects of pleasure. Swa Ananda, hold the bliss of the pure self, which you are, or hold on to God, and then you are smoking or drinking or some other vice, which is costing you money, time, and many other resources. That bad habit leaves you. You just hold God. Hold God, and then if you see what will happen. All negative emotions come near you and then say, no, we don't want to touch you. They go away. Nantam na madhyam na bahis smaranta. So the second line said, Indriya vritti swashanta. Maybe in some other version it is sushanta. The senses, eyes, ears, nose, etc., become very quiet. Then third line says, when they have risen to that heightened consciousness, ideas like outside, inside, middle, etc., do not mean much to them. They are at the most a little aware for just vyavahara's sake. Otherwise, they don't care. Put a good sadhu in a big, beautiful, spacious house and say this whole house, 4 bedrooms, is yours. And servants will be coming now and then to help you in anything. You just enjoy. He may say thank you, but within a short while, he will be doing his japa, he will be doing his Vedanta Dhyayana, he will be doing some prayers, and he will hardly explore the house in a manner of saying. 1 out of 100 may take a look at what kind of house he is now living in, but the spiritually advanced person, if not literally, in in principle, he doesn't spend much energy on these things. He is primarily rooted in Brahman. Therefore, Atmanam, Atmani eva avalokayantah. Aharnisham Brahmani ramantaha. Ahar means daytime, Nisha means at night. Ahar Nisham Brahmani ramantaha. Therefore, the examples of saints like Sadashiva, Brahmendra come before our minds. How they were so much in the ecstasy of Brahma Chintana. Sarvam Brahmamayam, Re Re, Sarvam Brahmamayam, sang Sadashiva Brahmendra, who also sang, right? Manasa Sancharare Brahmani Manasa Sancharare. O mind, stay more and more in Brahman. Don't play with fire. This world will make you more and more miserable only. Don't, on some pretext, try to do things in the world whereby you feel some self-importance. And that self-importance is so deceptive. Be careful. Manasa, O mind, Brahmani Sanchara, says Sadashiva Brahmendra, Kaupeena-Panchakam, Kalu Bhagyavantaha. The last verse now, last verse connects the whole shloka, whole kriti or whole stuti to Shiva Bhakti. It could be some for somebody else, Ishwar, Krishna Bhakti, Rama Bhakti, Devi Bhakti. That's not the main point here. But taking the setting of Shiva Bhakti, he says, Panchaksharam Pavanam Ucharantaha Patim Pashunam Hridi Bhavayantaha Bhikshashana Dikshu Paribhramantaha Kaupinavantaha Khalu Bhagyavantaha. Nama Shivaya. That is Panchakshara. If you add Om, it becomes Shadakshara. So the holy 5 syllables, Nama Shivaya. These enlightened people or people close to enlightenment, therefore living an extremely austere life, they go on reciting Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Because even some residual impurities in them are driven away, are washed away by this Nama Japa. Pavanam, purifying. Pavanam Panchaksharam Uchcharantaha, Japantaha, Patim Pashunam Hridi Bhavayantaha. Meditating upon Shiva, who is rightly described as Pashunam Pati. the ultimate ruler of all living beings. Bring him in your heart, hridaye, hridi, bhikshasana. Simplify your life. Don't try to do everything by yourself. There are people who are very willing to do them. Give that to them and simplify your life. How long will you go on doing the same materialistic things, especially when it's not your duty? When many people, rather than giving you work, ask to take work from you. Please give it to us. We will do it. Please do not strain yourself. They say to the sadhu. But if the sadhu is tamasic, he goes on doing what he had always done, and in the process misses out his sadhana. So it is said, simplify your life, take bhiksha from people who offer, and saving all the time, which you otherwise would have gone in cooking and protecting it for some more time, etc. Simplifying your life, that is implied by bhikshasana. Bhiksha eva ashanam yesham. Dikshu paribhramantaha. Not particularly attached to any single person. The wise people roam about. Roam about again needs to be taken qualitatively. They don't have attachment to any single place. So whether they literally roam about or actually they are at one place, but they are not attached. One must wonder. The latter is important. Ramana Maharshi stayed at Tiruvannamalai for 50 years, if not more. Does it mean he was attached? No way. He was not attached. Therefore, about him we can say Dikshu Paribhramanta. He as though was everywhere, not limited to this place. Though physically he was there only. Therefore, at many of these places, the meaning should not be taken physically, but what it implies in terms of the transformed outlook of you and me. May we strive to be free of our petty attachments. May we broaden our outlooks and bring about in us such change where we too become like, to use the idiomatic expression, Kaupeena-Panchakam. Literally, we too become so detached to the world, but more and more attached to God. In this way, Panchakam, the composition with 5 verses on Kaupeena, loincloth, emphasizing simplicity in the process, this composition comes to an end. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Let's see how some people may have a question. Who knows, somebody may want to add a 6th shloka right away. That is also welcome.
That is too much, Swamiji.
It is 6. Need not be in Sanskrit. It can be in Tamil. It can be in Malayalam. It can be in any.
Thank you very much. It was very nice.
Yeah. Please feel free to make any comment or ask a question. Wow, these short compositions seem to attract a large number of people. There is more people this evening here or morning in the West than on any other day. Wow. That means, if not anything, for a change, you love something simple rather than high Vedanta. Okay, let's see here. There is something on the chat box. Parvati Nayar, Hari Om, Kamala Tulasi, Hari Om, Chamunni, Raman Kutti, Pranams, Newton Raj, Namaskaram, Maithili Varadarajan. Yes. So, very nice to get your comments and greetings. Rekha Ramani has, I think, a question. How do we get rid of vices? We may have good intentions, but out of habit, envy, anger, hate may breed out of impulsiveness. First of all, most of us are in the same boat. When we hear these discourses, we feel good, but in real life, we are unable to change. But let me share with you the simple medicine. Just a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, just for those 4 or 5 minutes, put all your heart into the practice of praying to God. Your Ishta Devata may be Muruga or Rama, Madurai Meenakshi or Kashi Vishalakshi, does not matter. In whatever form or even without a form, you visualize God or Guru. It could be Guru also. Let's say you are greatly devoted to Ramana Maharshi. 4 or 5 times in a day, just for 4 or 5 minutes, leave everything and repeat Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya, and so on. And you will find a certain joy arises, will arise. And then your old habits get weakened. They get, you know, uh, they get less and less in their power. Tapering off, it is called. They get tapered down. But have patience. Nothing will happen overnight. Though if divine grace descends on us, overnight we can change. We don't rule out that possibility. But more often than not, it's over a prolonged length of time, prolonged duration that we change. First, our negative urges become less frequent, less intense. More quickly, we are able to get back to normal and so on. And later on, they just vanish. One day, suddenly you smile. Oh, when was it I got so angry? Can't remember. Long back. Olden days, how I used to be this way or that way. You know. Yeah.
Hari Om Swamiji, I have a
Hari
question.
Om, tell me.
I think sometime back while commenting on the Gita, you referred to Shankaracharya's Bhashya, and you said Arjuna's kind of the root sin was in Aham Esha Mama Ete.
Yes.
The identification with he is this and all that is bodily, just
Yes.
opposite of what you talked about, the identification with Brahman. So how do we
Yes.
get from the Aham Esha to Brahma absorption and that transition, and also I want these things, these are my relatives. That was Arjuna's error, fallacy. These are all my relatives, therefore I don't want to go to war. So too, I mean, we translating it in our day-to-day lives, we all have I'm attached to my to-do list on my iPhone. I've got these 6 things to do. So I think that those are my things and I need to accomplish that. And I am this person, and I have whatever my view of myself is, which is error. And then thinking that these accomplishments are mine, or these things that I need to do. So often they're like a burden, but you still have to do. So how do we kind of get over that error of identification seems to be so saturated in us?
Yes.
So in comment on
very well expressed.
Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah. Therefore, I too, while answering the question, said, we are all in the same boat. So a little variation. Some people may have this kama krodha coming too often. Some others may have kama krodha coming less often. Some people are egoistic. The whole town knows he's egoistic. Some others, you don't know until you take her or him in your team. Once you start working with her, my God, I always thought she was such a soft spoken, nice woman. How that she is in our team, I am able to see how egoistic, how she wants her own way. All her soft speaking is a very clever tool to get things her way. Ayo Rama, like that you realize. And that's how we too are also. People think of us as extremely good people. When they come close to me, close to us, when they work with us for a length of time, sometimes they feel. So this is a universal problem. And to answer how we will get rid of it, I will go about answering very briefly in two steps. One is this Kaupeena-Panchakam has the answer in the very first line. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantaha. Someone like you has been into Vedanta for a very long time. So in a way, you have good principle. The interest is yet to perhaps arise. Principle is with you. So you work a little bit, then you will be able to tap more and more for actual life. Sometimes, otherwise, our scholarship, as though, sits behind. It doesn't show so much in our behavior. So, what I mean by tapping is just persist in your contemplation. It will start showing in your behavior. The second part, which I wanted to briefly say, is uh, I myself am, fond of both Shastra and a lot of modern literature. So, in that context, presuming that many of you are also like that, I would say we have to balance the two. I would rather say either 50-50 or maybe 60-40. Shastras are time tested. Give 60% energy to Shastra. They are time tested. These popular books, all kinds of authors bring out with some fancy titles, and they seem to make matters very easy. Do read them, do study them, because sometimes because they use a very different language, they will use the word empathy, emotional maturity, or they will say, sticking to priorities. They'll use various modern words of psychology and modern lingo. So nothing wrong if we are attracted to it. But these new theories, they come and go. Our foundation has to be the Vedanta. So the first line of Kaupeena-Panchakam, Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantaha, I would say 60% from the original Vedanta, as wonderful traditional teachers bring it out, and 40% could be from all these great writers. Some of them do a very good job, no doubt.
I think your insight about the sequence you talked about. Often we think that if I get done with my material things, if I get done with my trips, get done with my attachment, get done with all these things, then I will go for God. Instead, you kind of reverse that, and he said, if you put God first in your life, and then you lose interest, and other things will, without your having to scratch them off your list, they will automatically drop away. I think that's a useful, very good insight.
True. We can see the truth of it. If we put God first,
there's no room for clutter. Other things that seem trivial.
Yeah. Thank you, Prasad. There seems to be two more questions. Ashwini Kulkarni. Easy to understand. The explanation is excellent. Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you.
Ranjan Desai ji has raised the hand.
Yeah, Ranjan, do you want to say something? Please turn your mobile microphone on.
Yes, actually, I just want to continue on the question that Prasad uncle had just now. He's asking. Actually, I was listening to a talk by Swami Sarapriyananji. So he gave an example of two Swamijis. One Swamiji, when he went to a hospital to do a surgery, he could take all these things without any pain, right? So and doctors were very surprised at him that he could do that without. So he didn't consider the body was his, right? So he is much more advanced. So another Swamiji who was also, he said, he was very well versed in Vedanta, and also he's like, all the things that you said just now. answer to Prasad Uncle's, right? So he was very well versed in Vedanta. He was a good Swamiji. He didn't name the Swamiji in Ramakrishna Mission, but but when his turn came, he said, no, I don't want it. It's all in the books. It's all in the Vedanta. I want the painkiller and stuff. So even advanced people also could. So how do you actually then discriminate that? Right? How do you get that? The body, it's studying Vedanta is not the solution, right? So I mean, what level should you go into in that? Is my question.
One must be true to oneself. If one really knows that one cannot bear the pain, there's nothing wrong in asking the doctor. I may be a great Vedantin doctor, but please give me total anesthesia. I should not suffer. There's nothing wrong with it, but humbly one must know that one has to do sadhana. Actually, there is a widespread notion, which is not true, that Ramana Maharshi went through some surgery without anesthesia. It's not true. When there was a small procedure, yes, he said, don't give me any anesthesia, just do it. But next day, a proper procedure was to be done. He actually accepted, please give that anesthesia. Which doesn't mean we judge Ramana Maharshi as identified with the body, but at a certain level, he respected the body's needs. When the body was hungry, he would say, give me some food, I am hungry. He would not say, I am not the body at the wrong time.
Okay.
So, but then that's where we should stop. We should not judge them more. But coming to the first line in my answer, we must be honest to ourselves. We should say, I would prefer a painkiller, if it is so. And because this has got a lot to do with purva samskaras and certain practices one might have done. Some people have done a lot of yogic practices. They have much better ability to bear with pain. And many of us who have gone more into jnāna yoga may not have that ability to bear pain. And we should not think low of ourselves. Remain humble, but be aware that I have my strengths, I have my shortcomings. I'm never tired of quoting a real story. Swami Chinmayananji, when he was studying with Tapovanji, on a certain day felt so low, he wanted to leave and go back to maybe Kerala or wherever. Because he saw one sadhu in Himalayas standing up to the waist in the cold Bhagirathi river and doing some prayers. And Swami Chinmayananji was astonished. I can't put my hand in this cold water for 5 minutes. This person is standing in the cold water waist deep. Maybe Vedanta is meant for him, not for people like me. So he was looking a bit depressed. Then Swami Tapovan asked him, Chinmaya, why are you looking a little pale today? And Chinmayananji said to him, I saw this sadhu in cold water and I thought I don't have that ability. Then Tapovan laughed and said, call that sadhu, let us ask him to read some Upanishad. He'll go to sleep in 5 minutes. 5 minutes with the Mundaka Upanishad or Mandukya Upanishad in hand, he'll there only fall asleep. Whereas you can study Upanishad till midnight. So know your strengths, but do respect to those people who have certain physical abilities, titiksha and so on. Don't unduly judge yourself. After all, those things are not all the time bothering us. Once in a while, we need that ability. Today, technology has advanced so much. A lot of our physical discomfort or pain, etc., we can manage through technology. And not that we knowingly and deliberately want to become dependent, but where at a given point of time, for example, I've been given a AC room and I'm feeling very hot. I should not, on the basis of some book which said sadhu should not be attached to comfort, I should not keep the AC off. I am feeling hot, very uncomfortable, and the host has provided a AC room. I just turn it on. I either overuse it nor go to extreme of not touching it and so on. So we should take the middle path. All of us have our shortcomings, right? We have our shortcomings. Some people can sing. they go and sing. Suppose I go and sing and many people don't openly express, but I come to know later. Many people said Swamiji should have just spoken, not tried singing, you know. Then what I should do is next time just give my speech. Even if some members of the audience say, please sing, I should say that's not my cup of tea. Here is somebody, we call the right person to sing, you know. So that's called taking the middle path. You can't overnight change.
Yes.
Right? So accept yourself as you are and work on your strengths, being aware of your shortcomings. But don't allow the shortcomings to make yourself feel low, useless, a burden on the earth, and oh, I will not no more show up in satsangs. Any more spirituality now for next life. Don't make such such statements.
Got it.
Along with your shortcomings, continue in spirituality in a properly modified, adapted manner.
Swamiji,
Yes, Praveena.
so to summarize, I know for Prasad's question, that so whatever that needed to be done day to day, you write a list of things, but and then it's just the Iswararpita Buddhi, just like offer it to divine. Is that the starting? Just to consciously just to offer it to him, because the day-to-day stuff need to be done.
Yeah.
And I remember one time Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda saying, you write list of your goals or whatever that need to be done, put it in the paper and start working towards it. Is that
correct?
so?
Yeah. Because we should not go to the extreme. We have a list of 28 desires we just made yesterday. Today, because you heard a webinar which was exciting, don't tear off that ticket, that list rather. You know, take that list in your hand and smile at it. Maybe keep it at a little distance for a day. Don't tear it off. Because after 24 hours, all the 28 desires will come back to you with one or two additional ones. So, you have to take the middle path. Yes, this is what I am. After all these satsangs also, I do have a few desires. In this way, recognize it and try to go about them in a decent way. Yes, that's a value called self-acceptance. You and I should accept ourselves as we are, which doesn't mean we become shameless or we cause injury to ourselves or others. So do something practical.
Thank you so much.
In other words, carry common sense along with spiritual wisdom. Only common sense can leave you very materialistic. So spiritual injections, shots are necessary. But too much of spiritual shots and you lose common sense, then you may do very insensible things,
Swamiji, if I might just share a personal
Okay,
experience.
yeah. Yes, Prasad.
Many years ago, I used to have I did not do many things in my working time. And so after retirement, I said, well, okay, I'm going to travel and, develop a list of interesting places that I want to see. And, I have some friends who shared those interests. So this is what we call the bucket list. Everyone has, before you kick the bucket, you have these 10 things, and there are so many books, 50 places to visit, 100 places to visit before you die and all that. So I have to admit that I too had a bucket list, not very long, but I did have sort of a bucket list. I want to go to New Zealand and Patagonia and Alaska and a few, what most people think of as exotic places. But now I will be 80 next year, and I don't have a bucket list. Wherever I go this year, that is fine, and whoever is able to join me, that is fine. But if somebody, often my friends ask me, so where are you going next? And what's your bucket list for next year? I said, no, my bucket list doesn't go extend to next year. It's only whatever I can do this year. So I think with more time and more thought given to the spiritual matters, the bucket list seems to have sort of slipped away or become weaker.
Right. That's a very good sharing, Prasadji. Yes. Yeah. I come to the chat box now. Someone who is an anesthesiologist has written, being an anesthesiologist myself, auto-suggestion helps quite a bit. Yeah, saying to ourselves, I'm okay, I think I'm able to bear, auto-suggestion, giving ourselves courage and so on. Thank you for sharing that. And Mr. A.S. Nagaraj also says, is the positive emotion also impediment to vairāgya? Yeah, relatively, positive emotions to a large extent are helpful, but at a certain level, they may also be not true, because positive emotion, all said and done, is something that doesn't take into account the whole picture. It sees the positive side and then says, oh, everything is okay. So in true vairāgya, you see the whole thing as it is. The good for its good side, the bad for its bad side, and seeing the whole with courage drawn from a higher truth, you remain unattached. In what is called positive thinking, especially. Positive thinking, you sort of close your eyes to what you don't have, and you want to see more and more what you have, and then stay positive. You use the word positive emotions, but in a way they are connected. Both positive and negative emotions have their own limitations. The eye of wisdom looks at both, and irrespective of where the mind is going, high or low, one attempts a certain equanimity. Looks like there is yet again one more. Positive emotions can become vasanas. Oh, yes, that's a very nice way of summarizing. The one problem with positive emotions, if you are generating them again and again, then they become vasanas. You get a bit dependent on them. You say, last time such a thing happened, I was able to arouse some positive emotions in me. Today, why am I not able to do it? In this way, you may feel bad. Therefore, compared with the sinking in negativity, being able to somehow catch hold of a positive emotion and remain floating is definitely better. But we should not become so dependent on these artificial things. They are on a certain level artificial. Whereas the Vedanta's clear vision of who you are is not artificial. It is the ultimate truth. Then you don't depend on the so-called, positive things, happy things, etc. Just like in Bhakti Marga, they say, if you can come to a state where you don't ask God for anything, that is the highest, though not easy for most of us. What is easy for us is, God, I don't want to ask you for anything which I don't deserve, but I have worked hard in this project. Please bless me that this project succeeds. Give me what is due to me, God. Am I fair? Am I not fair enough? This is called, dharmic prayer. But adharmic prayer is, God, to tell you the truth, I didn't answer a single question, but give me at least 85 marks. This is adharmic prayer. You haven't answered the questions. So the dharmic prayer, where you ask for something which your conscience says you deserve, is certainly better. But the height of devotion is, God, I wrote all the answers very well, but if you wish, fail me and pass 4 or 5 undeserving people. If you think they need some help, fail me. That's your wish. That is very high. That we pravachankars can talk about, not the audiences. It is okay in pravachans. In life, we feel very disheartened if our honest work did not meet with success. Right? So it's a scale. Compared with what is lower, something is better, but compared with what is higher than it, this so-called positive emotion could be a bondage in its own way. So I think if there is no other question,
This one.
one question, I'll answer it, then I'll make an announcement and we conclude. In just being, will this not erase positive and negative emotions and help us get closer to vairāgya? Absolutely. That you have expressed so well, philosophically speaking. But this just being may not be so easy for most people. We are carried away by the current of thoughts. But in our sattvic moments, here and there, at places, during our study and so on, we come very close to just being. And someone like Maharshi Ramana and so on would say, stay there, stay there. But we slip from that in 2 minutes. We slip, and then so many things become very important. If you don't mind my making a confession, sometimes, because I am a very seasoned, experienced speaker, in the middle of my lecture, I'm giving lecture, right in the middle, I think of something that is to be done tomorrow and even plan what is to be done. Okay, tomorrow a guest is coming in Chandigarh. Shall I go by bus or shall I take a car and go to Chandigarh to meet him? I think car is better. This is parallelly going on. Even as I'm explaining what is vairāgya. So you and I, have to, nothing wrong with that. It may be, but that total submission, just being, is not easy. Duties, responsibilities, fear, and some hope, they come and drag us, they drag us away from just being. But technically, you are 100% right. So with that, let's conclude the question and answer. The announcement I wanted to make was, nowadays we have been holding this webinar alternate Sundays. So next Sunday is May 1st, we will not have a webinar. And May 8th, I would have very gladly presented a special webinar. But exactly at the same time, 8:30 p.m. in India, 8 a.m. in California, the New York Ramana Maharshi Center has asked me to give a talk on Ramana. So that won't be on this Zoom link as here, but Vibhaji will provide to you. And I think there may be a YouTube link also, not for why, but it is a New York Ramana Maharshi Center, which is observing Bhagwan Maharshi's Aradhana Day. Bhagwan Maharshi actually dropped the body on April 14, but they are celebrating it on May 8. So the secretary of Ramana Maharshi Center in New York, in the area called Queens, they have an ashram there. So by coincidence, he asked me, can you deliver a lecture? I said, when? Sunday, May 8, we want to celebrate. What time? He said, in India, it will be 8:30 p.m. for you. I said, that is exactly when we were to hold a webinar. Okay, in its place, we will do the Ramana talk. So all of you will get, if you don't get some 2 or 3 days before, shoot an email to my forum. You will get the link and all that. So next webinar, 222, will be after that, May 22 or something. All right, may the sages, rishis, munis bless us to get more vairāgya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Kuppe mote